I am Jeff Foxworthy, and welcome to Gamekeeper Podcast. If you want to learn more about farming for wildlife and habitat management, then, buddy, you are in the right place. Join the Gamekeeper crew direct from Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Studio as they discuss the latest wildlife and habitat management practices, news, and, of course, hunting. There's no telling what you'll learn, but I'm going to tell you, I bet it's interesting. Enjoy.
5 and 3, 2, 1.
All right, everybody, welcome once again to our humble podcast studio here in West Point, Mississippi.
You can hear the Dudley Phelps Christmas album.
Are you doing another Christmas
with
album,
songs
Doug?
like It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Christmas.
Volume
It's
2.
beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Man, I forgot what a smooth voice you had,
Toys
Dudley.
in every store.
How many of those did you sell?
A beautiful rendition of chestnuts roasting over an open
He
fire.
loves the chestnuts, that's
But
for
the
sure.
prettiest sight to see is the holly that will be on your own front door.
It's kind of got a Sinatra kind of,
It does.
of
Yeah.
a flair to it.
Yeah.
Old brown eyes.
Yeah,
Wow.
he's killing it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
It's that time of
everybody.
year.
Right. It is
Yeah.
that
Well,
time
maybe
of year.
I'll try to sing a few more for the next show.
I think it's one of our favorite times of year. I mean, I know the spring is always, but I mean, this time of year, holiday season, hunting.
Yeah, the hunting is the best that
Hunt-
week
Uh-huh.
around Christmas.
Yes,
Right
yes.
here.
Right here.
What did it for me was I went to my son's 7th grade band concert last night in the gym at the junior high, and it was awesome.
What does he play?
He's percussion. He does like xylophone and the drums and things
Nice.
like that. So
Nice.
he got to bang the big cymbals.
So the music it runs through your veins.
It runs through my family. Yeah.
There
There it is.
Look at Bud. Look
There's
at
old
him.
Bud.
Does he have a Santa Claus hat on? Hey, that's pretty good.
Everybody's going to be in the Christmas spirit now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Way to kick it off, Richie.
speaking of Christmas, it's not too late to get some Christmas gifts.
No, it's not.
And so there's
What's
gift
better
cards.
to give?
what-
The Gamekeeper magazine.
Yeah.
Subscription.
You could get a subscription for a friend or a family member, or even like subscribe hunting camp that's
that's a
next
great
to you
idea.
that needs to learn how
There
to
you
manage
go.
their
If you're
place.
tired of what
yeah.
your neighbors are doing on their place, get them a subscription to Gamekeepers.
That's right.
Hey, and I will mention, I know it's Christmas and there's nothing better than the joy of the Christmas season, what it represents. But it is, Dudley, time to plant trees.
It is time to plant trees,
Especially in the
and
South.
They make an excellent gift. You can plant them in memory of a loved one, or give them to a friend, and they'll enjoy watching them grow. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yep. So Big Dave shipping them out hot and heavy. So
That's good.
is that
Well,
enough self-promotion? for
That
the
is,
beginning?
well, you never can do enough. But I would remind folks that if your wife's looking for something to give you, you might tell her an ATN scope. If you've got pig
Oh, yeah, if
problems,
you got pig problems.
it'd be a great way to help solve that. Duke traps, I got some last year.
Oh, you sure did.
The little dog proofs that aren't cat proof, I might add. By the way. But the dog proof traps are awesome.
Yes.
They are awesome. And Moultrie feeders, Spartan cameras, so many
There's so much
good.
stuff. So much stuff you can get for yourself.
Nosler bullets. Got any reloaders in your family?
I'm gonna go on and tell you, there's nothing I like getting better at Christmas than bullets.
Yeah, I used to get a lot of 22s. when I
Yeah,
was a kid.
it's good. It's always good.
Fill your stocking up and it'd be hanging with 22
Yeah, that's
cartridges.
it.
Yeah.
Good old days.
Yeah, yep. And don't forget Leopold scopes when you
Oh,
throw them in there.
Leupold.
Yeah, Leupold.
I
Yeah,
think it's Leopold.
it's Lou.
Is it Leupold? Or
Yeah.
is it
You're thinking of
Mississippi
the
or
author.
Mississippi?
All right. Hey, look.
Mossy Oaks.
So before we get in here we got a couple of guests. Well, let me just go ahead and go ahead and introduce. We've got, as you refer to him, he's OG.
OGK.
Yeah.
This man is as cool as it gets in the outdoor industry.
Jim Crumbley.
Jim Crumbley,
He
the father of modern day hunting camouflage.
he's the guy that started it all.
Yeah, taught me a lot. He really did.
And
So.
he's Jim, are you there?
I'm there.
There he is.
He's there.
Are you hidden on the side of a mountain somewhere in Virginia just enjoying life?
Yes, I am. Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. Gorgeous day today. A little windy, so I'm not sorry I'm not on stand.
Upon the
But
Blue Ridge Mountains,
we're
where I
stuck
take
on
my
the Blue Ridge
stand.
Mountain.
Man, it's
There's a
beautiful
song
up
about
there.
that, I think.
He's really the American dream.
Yeah.
He
No,
loves
I'd
hunting.
been taller. I'd be as tall as Lanny.
Besides that,
I'd be tall as Lanny. Then I'd be the American dream.
Well, you're
man.
living the American dream, though.
Hey, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. I'm gonna go and tell you.
So for some of the younger guys that may not know, you could Google Jim Crumbley, and he really, with tree bark, kind of invented the whole camo thing.
Invented
really
the
did.
modern.
Yeah, I think the first pattern that wasn't military based was tree bark. I never will forget the first time I saw it.
I remember the first time I saw it too.
Yeah, somebody was thinking about this.
So Jim, weren't you like a school teacher somewhere, and you kind of invented this?
I was. I went from marketing at Virginia Tech. Frank Beamer and I took all of our classes together in 68 and 69 in marketing at Virginia Tech. And he went to be assistant coach at Radford High School in Virginia. And I went to T.C. Williams High School in Alexandria, Virginia, and was freshman basketball coach. I know that's hard for y'all to believe.
That is really hard to believe.
And was a marketing teacher, taught senior
Oh,
marketing.
look at there.
Now, babe.
That makes a lot of
And
sense.
had on the movie Remember the Titans, Julius Campbell, the defensive end, had him in class. And it was a wonderful, wonderful 5 years of classroom teaching. And so I think second or third year there is when Remember the Titans, the movie, happened. So all the players and coaches were very, very good friends.
That's a great
from
movie.
From those 5 years, I'd finished my master's and I became an administrator in the Alexandria school system. That was not nearly as much fun for me because I wasn't with the kids all the time. And so that's when tree bark kicked back in. So somebody's going to do a hunting camouflage one day. My experience at that point in time, I was now a confirmed bow hunter and did competitive archery in the 70s. And my second favorite thing, where they were actually kind of even, was spring gobbler hunting. I'd hunted in Virginia, West Virginia, and Maryland by then. And what tripped the trigger was when I had my back, or anytime I let an arrow go or pulled a trigger, I had my back against a tree trunk. So I was, a bow hunter. I was only interested in bow hunting and spring gobblers. So I said, God just needs to have a camouflage like the bark of a tree. So worked on that until 1979, sold the first tree bark suit in 1980, and retired from the school system in 81.
Your daughter's been begging you to hunt since her little brother shot the big 8 last year. You've ran a fire, dissed the fields, got stuck, got unstuck. Planted food plots, fertilized, and prayed for rain. You moved trees, limbed roads, even bought one of those fancy cell cameras.
So what's your excuse?
LS Tractor.
Moultrie has pioneered the game management category. Today, Moultrie is one of the best-selling brands of feeders and seeders in the world, and they continue to innovate with new technology that gamekeepers will rely on. Moultrie products are always field-tested and designed for hunters by hunters, combining forward-thinking innovation with time-tested practicality. Moultrie, first in feeders since 1979. All right, so guys, Moultrie is offering our listeners a 15% site-wide discount at MoultrieFeeders.com. Use code Mossy Oak with a capital M, Mossy Oak, at MoultrieFeeders.com and get that 15% discount. So a kid could have been in the 10th grade and Jim Crumbley would have could have taught him
Could have taught him. That's right.
That would have been a lot of fun. So, Jim, we've got a lot of questions we want to ask you about hunting the rut, post-rut, probably even some of the way you prepare your venison. But
No doubt.
let's park that on the side. We've got a guy, a guest here, and we want you to ask questions as well. But we've got a young man named Mike Yoder. And Mike has a drone recovery service, and he's traveled to many states doing this. And since, Lanny, a few weeks ago, we did the episode about recovering deer with dogs.
Yep.
And then we posted a picture of some guys doing it with drones, and we got a lot of comments.
Yeah, a lot of conversation around that.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think I saw him on a podcast, maybe this time last season, or it was maybe one of your videos, and it had an amazing amount of traction, an amazing amount of comments, and also an amazing amount of opinions. But I was just fascinated by it. So we're here to learn more.
Mike, welcome. We're glad you could make it. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be on.
Well, what's I've got some questions, but I think maybe the best way to start is, what are you encountering out there trying to recover deer with your drone? Is it creating some problems?
Well, the only problems it's creating is opinions on different statutes of how laws are written and if it's legal or not. That's most of our problems. As far as out in the field doing it and recovering, there's not too many problems I'm running into other than early season if the canopy is really thick. But when you talk about there went my mic. when you talk about problems, the problems we're encountering are definitely on the legal side of things.
Yeah. So when you get a drone up in the air, so you can search in the daylight, I suppose. And, I've seen some footage and it's pretty obvious when there's a dead deer laying there. And then are you also doing thermal at night?
Yeah, so the way we do this, if you guys aren't aware how we do it, is we have thermal on our drone, and then we have a 200 times zoom camera. It's an RGB camera. What that is a normal red, green, blue camera, what you're used to seeing. Basically, the thermal, we find them a heat signature first, and then hit the zoom camera to see if that is the deer that you hit or not. So it has to have some type of heat signature that the thermal camera picks up. And then once we pick up that heat signature, we hit that zoom camera, zoom in to see if it's the carcass or not.
I just bet that this is very
effective.
Very effective. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I almost get cocky because I am that confident in the technology. If your deer is in the search area, we're gonna find it. It is that simple. Unless he is buried or is in water. If they're laying in water, it can be very, very, very difficult. We have found one that was laying in water, but there were a couple that were in water, a creek or a pond or something like that later were found. But rarely are they in those situations where we can't find them. Our biggest challenge is by far if the canopy is very thick, like early season, the deer just have a lot more places to hide.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so Mike, you're based out of Ohio. How far will you travel to help somebody?
I usually tell people I'm willing to travel as far as you're willing to pay, because I charge a mileage to travel. But how our website is set up right now, if somebody is in other states, they go to dronedeerrecovery.com and they can find pilots that are near them that have thermal drones to do the same thing I do. But we want to caution sportsmen that are going to dronedeerrecovery.com to find a pilot is not all pilots have the same equipment that I do. We list them on the website, what equipment they have, and to make sure, that they have the equipment they're looking for.
Wow. If you shoot a big deer, can't find him, maybe your buddy's got a dog, maybe y'all try, but boy, this would be a great option.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I know there's some controversy around it, but the thought of, an animal out there not being utilized after you, for one, worked your butt off to raise it and then, and then harvest it.
Right. I mean,
it's just wanton waste.
I've been known for my opinions to change, but it makes perfect sense.
Right.
You want these animals to be recovered.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
And just like with everything else, I mean, there's going to be some people that misuse, things. I'm sure when the spotlight came out, Bobby, I don't know where you stood on that issue, but it was probably controversial. But you know what I mean? It's, I hate for one, bad use of it to give a black eye for everything, which is pretty common in the hunting community. So
Yeah. Yep.
So
And that's so true, because that is the biggest pushback we're getting is the potential for abuse. But it's like, I talk to guys that are big into thermal hunting, right, with their scopes on their rifles. Like, there's potential for abuse there. But I believe that majority of the people that are in the hunting industry, majority are still good people.
Oh, I know they are. I hope
There's
they are.
always going to be a couple bad apples, right?
And everything
that could potentially screw it up. But for the most part, I think there's enough good people that are not going to use it to go out and find a world-class buck and then go shoot it because they use the drone to, get its exact coordinates and then walk in and shoot it.
And you bring up a good point. I mean, we've already got thermal rifles. I mean,
we
we're
use
using thermal for recovery. I mean, it's not like you're shooting them with the drone.
We use
Not
a
yet.
lot of things that could potentially be used to break the law.
Sure.
And
exactly.
we have a choice, and we live in America too. So
America.
Yep.
Give me some knuckles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is the kind of the pushback? Is it coming from what are they saying? I guess let you explain that.
Well, they are saying we are using an aircraft in the aid of hunting. They are saying that recovery is still part of the hunt, that is the farthest thing from the truth that could be. Because if you think about recovery and saying that you are still hunting, well, then wouldn't that mean that if you go in at night to recover your carcass, then you're still hunting, and that's not legal? So why are you allowed to go recover your carcass after hours? Makes no sense. That's their only way to slow the technology down, is let's just say it's illegal and cut it straight out. Like, they can't do that. They can't just say it's illegal without a statute to support their reasoning.
It makes a lot of sense.
Are there any states that have outlawed it? Is there any pending legislation about it? I mean,
Well, yeah, there's states that say they have outlawed it, but if you look at how their laws and the statute is written, there's attorneys that would laugh at them.
Yeah.
So Michigan, right, they send us emails, say you can't use a drone in recovery because it's aiding in the hunt, is what they say. Iowa, I think, is trying to do it. Illinois is doing it. I got a cease and desist from New York. Like, there's plenty of states that are saying you can't do it. But it comes down to how the statutes are written. And when I talk about this, I'm not giving legal advice at all. Like, you have to, do your own research and get your own attorney to read the statutes. But I'm telling you right now how the statutes are written, that if you have a good attorney and they are going to tell you that, well, you were aiding in the hunt with your drone, that is so ridiculous.
Right.
Because we just heard this said like this. So let's say there's two buddies that are going hunting. You have a tag, I have a tag. We go out in the morning, and I shoot a buck, and I take it back to camp, and now you shoot a deer, right? You hit a deer, you start tracking it, but you get tired, and you're like, man, I'm tired, and you come back to camp, and now I go and I track your deer. No weapon, no nothing, right? Like, I'm allowed to go track your deer. I'm not hunting. So why wouldn't I be allowed to do that with my drone? I'm not hunting.
All of that legality stuff and the
Oh, yeah.
words, the verbiage. I was looking at Mississippi today, and it specifically said no baiting is allowed, but they allow you to put corn out.
Well, yeah.
What do you call that? I mean, it's just how the words are and all the weird legal descriptions.
You can't bait, but you can feed properly.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
sure.
So, Mike, could it be? Is it one of these scenarios that technology has just moved so fast that it kind of snuck up on some of these states, and
Oh,
they probably just don't know what their opinion is yet, and
Yeah,
so they just kind of
exactly.
knee jerk and say
That
no.
makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, it makes sense.
That's totally it. It's a knee-jerk reaction. So I just spoke to a guy today that was head of Game and Fish in Illinois in 1995, and he told me that exact thing, is when something new comes, they just react to it. It's just like, okay, boom, this is what we're going to tell them. Illegal, can't do it. But in the long term, they will have to write true policy to have it black and white. It can't be gray. Like, it can't be, well, this is how we feel that, the law reads. It can't be like that.
Yeah.
Can you, just for our listeners, some of them may not know, can you just go through a scenario of how you how you recover a deer? Is it normally after they try with a dog and then can't, or can you just go over the scenario real quick?
Yeah. So when I, started last season, they would use all means necessary, usually before they call me. But now that people have, watched the videos on YouTube and there's millions of people that have watched it now. I would say more people are transitioning into getting a drone because of the reason that if your deer is actually not dead, you won't bump them. So if you take a dog in it, you can, tend to bump those deer at times. So people are now transitioning over to using drones. I don't think that dogs should go away. I don't think that dogs will go away. Dogs have their place in this. When I first started, people felt like I was against them. And I'm not against dogs whatsoever. I am just saying when I'm flying my drone that I feel, my opinion is that this is better than a dog, because if your deer is not dead, you're not going to bump him and you're going to leave him there until he expires. So the normal process of how we recover a carcass is you show me on your favorite app, Google Earth or any of the other platforms out there that you like to use. You would show me where you shot him on that map, and then you would show me a trail where you tracked him, and I would take the drone into that area, and I would look in the area that you want me to look. As the hunter, you tell me, well, I feel like he's going to be back in this draw. I'm going to go try to find him over there with my drone. And if I don't find him there, then I basically just start doing a grid pattern, right? Just like you would if you're in a big open field, go down, go over 10 feet, come back. Do that with a drone, but just cover hundreds of acres in the amount of time that you could ever do it on foot. And if he's in there, I'm so confident. If he is in there, I am going to find it.
Hey guys, Dudley from Gamekeepers here. I want to tell you about the all-new Gunner Dog Bowl. It's designed for home and built for travel. It's customizable, leak-resistant, light on weight, solid on durability, and rust-proof. Like other Gunner products, they're made in Nashville and designed for everywhere.
How long will that heat signature from a dead animal last?
So I have to say it in a ideal condition. Ideal condition, let's say it's between 30 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit. 48 hours is, we found it 48 hours after. There's a couple different, scenarios. Like if it's below freezing, that's not going to last as long. But there's no hard evidence that I can give you that if it's, between 20 and 30, it's this many hours. If it's between 30 and 60, it's this many hours. But I can tell you that we have found deer that, were shot 48 hours before, and we found them.
Pretty good.
Lanny, one time we left Giles Island.
Yeah.
And a couple of the guys stayed back to film a commercial, David. And he was flying a drone, just filming some footage.
Yeah.
And Hank Parker had been there hunting with us and lost a deer a couple of days before that, and they saw it from the drone. Yeah.
I mean, if you think about trailing a deer through thick CRP, a lot of the habitat we have around here, I mean, you can hardly see as far as you can reach. So giving that aerial perspective is pretty
interesting.
It's a huge,
around here you may walk 10 foot by a deer.
You can literally walk right by them here in the right place.
You walk right past them even if you have a GPS coordinates off at the drone. I found a big 8-pointer that we had a GPS coordinates, and we walked to it. It was big old tall grass, probably 4 or 5 feet tall with underbrush and stuff. And we're like, that deer gotta be right here. Like that drone usually gets us within 20 feet of where it is. And we were literally 20 feet from the deer, didn't see it, walked around it, and then finally stepped on it. But it was like, there's so many times, I guarantee it, when we were tracking deer that we either walked right past them or just did not go far enough.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. Hey, Jim Crumbley, you got a question?
I don't have a question. I just have several comments, and I'll try to make them quick.
Sure.
I think it's really interesting, and I think it's great. It's like Lanny said earlier, and we all agree that if there's some way to keep you from losing a deer, it should be, thoroughly allowed to be allowed, I guess. And I go back to a situation that happened to me years ago in Virginia. A local outdoor writer had called me to do a interview for an article, and we were talking about this, that, and the other. And he said, "So, have you done any good this year?" And this was going towards the end of October, getting ready to come into November. And I said, "Yes, we have does in the freezer now, and I did shoot one of the very few mature bucks that I've ever shot in October. And fortunately, I had to let it go overnight because I didn't see it fall. I thought I had a good hit by the arrow. And the next morning, I took my blood trail dog, Tiki. Sherry named him Tiki Barber Crumbley. And Tiki found him, and my blood trailing dog, who's long past now, but we had 56 confirmed finds by Tiki in a 10-year period.
Wow.
I had a rule that when you shot, to leave the arrow in the ground if it was there, and if you didn't see the deer die, you had to come back to the house, and we took the dog. So a lot of those deer we would have found anyway because they were dead within 50 to 100 yards. But
Sure.
anyway, I made it.
Yeah.
I made it happen that he would have to find it. So I mentioned to this writer that I took Tiki, and we found this buck the next morning. I think it's the first buck I ever shot off the property that had over a 20-inch inside spread. And I shot it in October. And like I said, to this day, we've been here 34 seasons. And once I fully retired, added those 5 extra Saturdays to my week. From October, November, and December, I hunt at least a half a day every single day, weather permitting. Wow. On our property, of course. But all of a sudden, so I said, I'm real proud of getting this. That was the first mature buck I'd ever shot in October. And this outdoor writer said, well, tell me again that you took the dog looking for your deer in October during bow season. And I said, yeah. I said, I've done it on many does. And he said, well, I got to tell you something. He said, that's against the law in Virginia.
What?
And I said, what? And he said, it's against the law in Virginia to use a dog to hunt or recover a deer during bow season. And I said, you got to be kidding me, Mark. And he said, I'm telling you. He said, I've had this discussion before with somebody. And I said, well, and he said, I'm not going to include that part in the article. I am going to include the part about you getting your first mature, what you feel like was a 5-year-old or buck in October. And I said, well, okay. Well, as it happened, we're real close to our game wardens, which are now conservation officers. And Sherry, my wife, has at one time served on the Virginia Game Division board. She wasn't the first woman, but she ended up being the first woman to be chairman of our game department in Virginia.
Excellent.
So I knew all the people. And I called our executive director at the time, Bob Duncan, and I said, hey, I got that question. He said, what? And I said, I've been told that retrieving a wounded deer during bow season with a dog in Virginia is illegal. He said, no way. And I said, I've been told that. And he said, well, that can't be because at the Radford Army Ammunition Plant, when we have our herd reduction program every year, we use dogs so that we can give the deer to the hunters for the hungry. And I said, well, I've been told, and he said, he's got it right here in the laws. And anyway, Bob said, let me get with legal and I'll call you back. And he did. And he said, wow, he's right. We've got outdated laws and rules. And he said, I promise you, I will take care of this. He said, the ridiculous part of this is in the coastal counties of Virginia, you can run in gun season, you can run deer with dogs to kill them.
But you can't use one to recover them.
And he said, it's just outdated. This goes back into the 60s or something like that. We'll fix it. So what Mike's going through here now is that kind of stuff. It takes people that just need to think things out to get it right. But I think Mike's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's a long story to get to that one point.
Yeah,
I'm really good at long
Yeah, it's
stories.
pointed, yeah, antiquated.
Hey, I
laws.
like it. I like the details because he went into the details of how it wasn't allowed. It's just like game cameras and cell cams. When those first came out, that was very controversial if those were going to be allowed to be used.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I learned to tell long stories from Bobby Cole.
Going back to your wife, Miss Sherry, though, she clearly is your better half, and I forgot that she'd been so involved in all the in the outdoors,
leading
up there.
conservation work, no doubt about it.
No one lets me forget that.
Wow. Well, so Mike, I'm looking over here at our producer Richie Davenport, who I would love for you guys to get you guys hooked up. I think it'd be really interesting to do a TV show with him.
Absolutely.
Recovering some animals.
Yeah,
so.
and there's a network of guys you work with, isn't it, Mike?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, well, the company has pivoted a couple different times on what it is that we do. So originally I was going to have just exclusive operators for drone deer recovery. They would come here and they would train. They would have the equipment I had. They were essentially me providing the service in other parts of the country. But we pivoted away from that because what happened is we had millions of people watching this on all social platforms, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, you name it. And there were literally thousands of people coming to drone deer recovery to look for a pilot. And nobody was really close in their area, or the area was so big that we weren't able to serve them. So one day we had I think it was 30 or 40 people, and we were only able to serve 2 of those because we were just too far away. And I told my business partner, I was like, we got to shift. We have to get more pilots onto the platform because people are coming to drone deer recovery to find a pilot. They're not necessarily just coming for a drone deer recovery pilot. They're just wanting somebody with a thermal drone to help them find their deer. So now we pivoted away from exclusive operators for drone deer recovery and are allowing anybody with a thermal drone to list on our website. That way, when somebody comes and is looking for a thermal pilot, they can call that pilot directly, and then they can go out and help them. So that's how we're set up now, is to basically be a place where sportsmen come to find a pilot in their area to help them recover a carcass.
It's pretty cool business model.
Yeah, it is cool.
It really is, helping guys find their deer. And my understanding is he's found missing dogs and cattle and
all kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you do some wildlife management stuff.
One of my guys just found a dog yesterday. They found him in 15 minutes in a big open area. He was missing since Sunday, so he would have been gone for 3 days, and they were able to go out there and find him.
That's really good.
And you do some wildlife management stuff too, like buck
so
and wildlife survey.
I call them herd analysis. After talking to a biologist, he said he would call it more of a deer census.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm willing to learn on that stuff. Like if biologists want to help us try to figure out how to utilize these drones in a better way to help with herd management. Basically, I call it a herd analysis, where I come out and I fly your property. Basically, the whole thing gets flown, and I count all the deer that are on there and give you a antler versus antlerless count. And I don't know how to prove this for sure, but I believe I'm about 98% accurate on counting every deer that is on your property.
Boy,
I mean,
it would be doing a lot of counting down here.
It would be hard not to. I mean, you're basically looking at a big black square with 3 or 4 red dots on it.
You got it.
It could be pigs down here, though.
That's true.
We did run into some of that. So we did some stuff in Georgia. We did some stuff in Oklahoma. We were in Alabama. So yeah, there are challenges. You'll find coyote, you'll find fox, you'll you'll find anything that has a heat signature.
But you can zoom in, I assume, and ID them most of the time.
If he's IDing antlerless versus antlerless,
Oh,
I can figure that out.
absolutely.
Cows
Yeah, we're
usually
gonna
don't have
see
horns.
it. Yep.
And I can see in 10 years there being technology that can just differentiate it.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, yep.
You know
It-
how like fish finders and things have evolved
Oh,
over
yeah.
the years.
Or home security. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yep, absolutely. AI will be able to do this. And I believe with this is getting really out there, but I believe in the future that they are already doing it in China and other parts of the world where there's a hub. Your drone lands in this hub, so it lands and it charges itself and it can take off and it can go do its mission and come back and return. I see people being able to do that on their farm. So the drone takes off, goes out, comes back, brings the data back, and you can tell, okay, looks like I got, 30 doe that moved in overnight or something like that.
That's interesting.
it really is.
So, have you ever been called to find like a missing person or something? I know that's kind of off subject.
Yep.
But
Yep. So I've been called for missing persons. When I get those calls, I want to make sure that law enforcement is already involved. It gets it's not. I've been called to look for like potential suicide people, and that just doesn't. It's different.
I'm
Yeah,
sure.
I would think so.
That's a good word for it.
Definitely different.
Yeah. We appreciate you being on here. And
Yeah, not a problem.
We're really interested in what you're doing. We love dogs, but in fairness, we want to make sure we recover as many. We don't leave
No doubt about it.
no
No, and
animal
I-
unrecovered.
I don't really see that as a competition thing. We're all hunters. We're all in this together. We want to be able to recover our deer.
Yeah.
That kind of sounds like what you had mentioned earlier. So
Yep.
So
Yep.
Richie, let's get with Mike. Let's figure out a way to do a show about it. I think that'd be really interesting. So
Yeah, and in the meantime, go check out dronedeerrecovery.com. I just piled up in there and look, there's a guy right here local with us. Actually, no, Blake Henley. We can call now, and it's just right here in our local area. So
Nice.
it works.
yeah.
Yeah, it does work out. See, that's the other thing about what I'm doing now. When I first started, I don't know, do we have time? If not,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll cut it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is when I started the YouTube channel, it was about paying my drone off. I spent $21,000 on my drone, and I was like, I just want to do enough recoveries to pay my drone off. Well, it's blown up completely way beyond that. Now what I want to do is help those guys that are on our website, make them successful. So really, it's like, people think like it's about me. No, I want to turn it into about you. If you want to fly drones and you want to do this, like, let's see how we can make you successful. Because the guy you just mentioned on our website, if he's able to drum up business because of the website, that's what I want to do. I want to send people to the website, call your local operators in your area, and help them with their business.
Yeah, I just went to a site, put in 39773. My buddy Blake Henley popped on up, and I just texted him, so I'm already in touch. Bobby, next year you can't find, we're on it. So.
Nice.
Well,
nice.
This is really interesting, and
It is.
we appreciate you taking time to join us.
Hey, not a problem. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, be careful this winter. We'll stay in touch. I expect we'll probably be seeing more of you.
Yeah, sure. will.
Cool.
Yeah, I know we will. Thanks,
Sounds
Mike.
good.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep. Have a good one.
You too, buddy. Nosler's known for their bullets, and now they're making suppressors. Nosler suppressors are made for hunting. Adding a Nosler suppressor to your rifle will make you a quieter, more accurate, and more effective hunter. Protect your hearing and disturb less game with a Nosler suppressor. The time to hunt quiet is now. Learn more at nosler.com.
The Furminator is the industry's most versatile piece of food plot equipment, allowing plotters to do every step of the process, working the soil, adding seed and soil supplements, and compacting, from start to finish with a single implement. It's hassle-free by design. Set it for the seed size and simply drive the tractor, and the Furminator does the rest. Check it out at thefurminator.com.
Let's change gears a little bit. We've got Toxie on the line, and we got Jim Crumbley, and I want to take this opportunity to, Mr. Jim, we want to learn from you. You've been bow hunting a long time. There's no telling how many years, if you'll even own up to them. But would you kind of explain some of your secrets or your strategies as for hunting the rut, or specifically bow hunting the rut, and specifically trying to target mature animals?
Things change. You go through phases and stages when you start. I was a late bloomer. I think y'all might remember, because I didn't have deer season where I grew up in Southwest Virginia, right on the Tennessee border. So I was small game with Dad up until my very first bow hunt was while I was a student at Virginia Tech. I was with the Alexandria school system. I took a part-time job goose guiding, waterfowl guiding on the eastern shore of Maryland. I used to think a mature buck was 3 years old, but we all know now that 5 is where you really would like to see them, to where they're going to show up to be what they're going to be. So I didn't get into that till we got our own property where I am now, and we bought it in 1990, and then that changed everything. And the first fall I hunted here, which was the fall of 1990, I saw one 8-point buck the entire season. The next year we were on our state game program, our DMAP, deer management program. I allowed bow hunting only, and friends and family, we killed 27 deer on the DMAP program. Every single one of them was a doe, because that's what we wanted to do. And it took 3 more years of that before we started seeing 3-year-old 8-pointers. Now we pretty much every year somebody kills 1 or 2 5-year-old bucks. So we're not an area of Virginia that has the great genetics, but we know that we have them now, and we know how to give ourselves advantage by doing it. And I mentioned earlier, October has always been a difficult time for us to shoot a mature buck. They're just nighttime guys. And December is even worse. But we still hunt for the mature buck. We shoot does in October, and if we haven't filled the freezer, we shoot does in December. We don't shoot does in November. I learned, of course, like you guys did, and you have known way before I did, from Joe Champion down in Alabama. Bless his heart. We love you, Joe. Of course, there was a January rut down there. And I never knew that. And I think, don't y'all have a January rut in most of Mississippi?
It's usually most of December, I would say, on average, but in the south east, it's January.
Joe Champion telling me, don't come down here in December.
That's right. We didn't hunt. We didn't hunt much in December.
And so what I'm saying is, it's tough to do, even on property that I lived with the deer. I mean, I live with the deer now for 34 years. It is really, really tough to take a mature buck, especially in December. However, I still go every chance I get.
There you go.
In hopes of, because there's 2 sayings we live by, and one is we go to see if it's meant to be, and the other is you got to go to know.
That's right.
That's right.
And I can't stand not being there. I don't go when I'm going to be uncomfortable anymore.
And what's the other one? You can't kill them on the couch. Right?
Well, unless it's a good football game. But no, it's something that gets Toxie knows. You guys know too. It just once it gets into your blood, it's going to be there.
No doubt about it.
I can't believe friends. I had friends that were addicted in the 70s and 80s and don't deer hunt anymore. And I don't understand that. So
you feel like are you still as mad at them as you were when you were much younger, or are you going just more to just enjoy?
If I see one that I don't get a shot at, it doesn't blow me off my stand and stomp all the way home. And no, if it just doesn't happen, then I tip my hat and it's not his day. And hopefully I'll see him again. That's another thing that I think is so tough to do, is you get a real nice one on your cameras in July, and you say that's in velvet, and you say that's the one I'm going to hunt this year. Well, that's the worst thing in the world I ever tried to do. I don't do that anymore.
Oh, target a specific animal?
I think that's tough.
It is.
So I guess the answer to Bobby's question, I have no secrets, except now I have the luxury of going all the time. I remember somebody in one of my seminars at the Greenbrier Resort, he said, well, when would you say is the best time to go and for a chance to shoot a good buck? And I said, buddy, when you can. When you can. That's the best time to go is when you can. So that's the way I feel. No secrets.
Dr. Lashley gave us that answer for burning. What's the best time of year to burn? He said, anytime you can.
That's the same thing. So I wish I had, the magic solution. I remember Gene Wenzel, one of my favorite quotes for him is, if you want to shoot a big mature buck, go where they have big mature bucks.
That's another good answer.
100%. And I think that starts it, and then it would just take time being there. But if they get big, and sometimes it's just not meant to be.
As a bow hunter, do you typically prefer hunting in the field edges and things, food plots, or are you more often in finding yourself in the woods?
Mostly in the woods up here. We do not have crops to hunt. We do overseed from time to time. Usually it's it's clovers or something like that. In 1991 or 92, I planted sawtooth oaks all over our property, and that's probably the best thing I ever planted and that's about the only thing I could do in our country. We can't do fruit trees and things like that because we're covered up with black bears. We generally shoot 1 or 2 black bears every fall, and we're mostly hardwoods here. This year we did not have a good natural acorn crop, so the deer were scattered out more, and that made it tough. Our sawtooths help us on the property a whole lot, and of course by November I'm around thickets. If somebody else asked me one time in a seminar, if I had 1 week in November I could take for vacation, when should I take it? And just again, from the states that I had hunted up in this area, Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, I would take it between November 10th and the 20th.
I would think a lot of people would say that, in the whitetails range, where the rut is typically in November. That's probably the sweet spot.
I would have to think. And I mentioned I've only shot 1 mature buck in December. That particular buck I shot, the date, as I said, I can never forget because it was 12/13/14.
Hey, Jim, what do you prefer? And do you see a difference between the pre-rut, early rut, and the tail end?
Good question. And I would have to go, for my experiences here, for the beginning, usually the first Saturday of November. And so like the 5th through the 10th, for 5 or 6 years in a row, the biggest bucks in our county and surrounding counties were killed by muzzleloaders. We start out by the end of October seeing young bucks pestering does pretty much into the first week of November. And then it's like somebody brings a trailer truck full of mature bucks in and dumps them on your property. Somebody's going to get a crack at one pretty much every day, starting on the 10th.
Makes a lot of sense.
I would just say from my observations, it seems like there's more, call it maybe, let's cheat a little bit, 4-year-olds and up at the early rut. But I would say I've seen more really big deer, like sure enough, like 6 or 7 oldest deer. I've seen more of them get killed right after the rut was ending. And I always felt like that was because those deer were so wise to what was going on. They had a doe with them all those weeks leading up to that. And that's the first time they can't find a doe. And that's when they, for a day or two, and plus they hadn't eaten anything in a while, that's when they really roam looking for one last doe and get killed.
No, I agree with that. I saw that personally because of you guys. In 2001, y'all sent me on an outdoor writers hunt in Southern Illinois. I saw on the edge, I'm back in the woods off the edge of a soybean field, and first morning at daybreak, I'm saying, what is that I'm seeing? And it turns out that this really, really, really nice buck was turning his head, and all I was seeing were horns because he was bedded down on the other side of a bank of dirt. He's about 75 yards from me, and I've got my binoculars on him now. It's getting good daylight. And he laid there until does started filing out of that soybean field. and he was bedded on a trail that they were taking to come out of the soybean field, then he would start checking them out. It's like it was going through a pass gate. And he did that again the second morning. When he would finally get a doe he wanted to be with, he would leave with her. He wouldn't chase her. He would just follow her off. The name of the outfitter was Heartland. Maybe it was.
Yeah, it sure was.
After supper, James said, tomorrow at lunchtime, I'm going to move that stand up closer to that bean field, but then the next morning, I want you to let it lay, and I'll take you somewhere else. And then you go back in there, and I'm going to have to take you in there like 3 o'clock in the morning for you to get there. I said, that's fine. Let's do it. And he did it. I shot that buck that morning, doing the exact same thing that he has done the previous mornings, but the doe came right in front of me this time instead of going the opposite way. Scored him at 159 gross. Heck of a nice buck.
No doubt.
He wasn't out running around. It's just like Toxie said. He knew what he had to do as a mature buck. He said, I'm just going to sit right here and let them come to me, and then I'm going to find one that's ready. That hunt, I learned an awful lot from that one mature buck of why I don't see them, during that special period when there's easy does to find. They are in lockdown, and you don't see them running crazy like you do the 2 and 3 year olds.
Would almost expect that buck to get in with a doe and maybe spend a couple of days with her. But he sounded, from what the story Mr. Jim told, is that he sounded like he was picking does that were ready.
Every morning.
Yeah.
Laying in the same spot 4 mornings in a row, I guess.
It sounds like it was working really well for him.
Yeah, he was doing a good job.
I'd say in the same too if it was working out like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. You're managing a spectacular place up there, and you've had 34 seasons to make changes and improvements. And so if a guy's listening to this and he's got a property that he can affect some change on, what would you suggest that he definitely do?
I think the most successful thing is, I've already mentioned that the most successful thing I ever put on the property was Sawtooth Oaks. It just works for us. These same sawtooths are, good Lord, 60 feet high, and I can't tell you how many bushels of acorns they have every single year. Making sure natural stuff that's here, the blackberries, the persimmons. We've done select timbering, what we think is proper propagation of the forest for us, and that's worked well. We keep bush hog trails for the deer to travel. And probably the next thing is just for management is the whole 34 years, if you shot a buck, you had to pay to get it mounted or you didn't come back to hunt here again.
There you go. Always a good rule.
Except for my wife.
Yeah.
So that just puts the pressure on the hunter to make sure it's something that he's really excited about.
Correct. We don't say it's got to be an 8-point and it's got to be a 3-year-old 8-point. We don't do that. Shoot, our local taxidermists get $450 for a shoulder mount now. So if he wants that buck and he wants to spend $450 on it, then we've got enough bucks now that's fine.
That's really an easy way to do it. If you have 10 or 12 guests a year and you're not positive they're able to age the deer on the hoof, and you're going for mature deer only, that makes perfect sense. Don't shoot it unless you're going to shoulder mount it. If you want to,
worked well for us.
You want some deer meat, shoot a doe, put her in the freezer.
Well, Jim, what should we be asking you about hunting the rut, hunting post rut, managing your property? Is there any other advice or any things that you've learned in the last 34 years on that one property?
Is just go. If there's sign that a big buck around, if you've got rubs, if you've got scrapes, just spend what time you can. And if it's meant to be, it'll be. And if it's not, tip your hat and say next year or next time.
There's a lot of folks who, their plan is to keep the pressure as low as possible until they go in, or that you wait on that absolutely perfect wind, or the weather's not right. You kind of sound a lot like me. I just like being out there. I do try to strategize and hunt the wind and stuff like that, but if it's raining, I like being out in the woods. I'm probably going to go anyway.
Yeah.
I guess the smaller the property, the easier it is to overpressure your deer if you're hunting in the wrong areas with the wrong wind. And I'm sure you take that kind of stuff into consideration, even though you do go a lot.
Actually, Bobby, to answer your question, once you do have the privilege of managing your own property, keeping does around year round, we do it with natural habitat and natural food, but keeping does around year round, that's going to have the bucks coming through. Maybe not mature bucks that live on your acreage. I mean, we only have right at 400 acres, but all the people that are around us are on the same program. That's key. Closer to 3,500 acres, contiguous acres that everybody's on the same page. In the last, I know, 20 years has helped things around here considerably.
How did you go about, did you kind of have some plan on, getting to know your neighbors better and trying to lead by example, or did somebody, was this a concerted effort, or, how long has that been going on where y'all have all been on the same page?
It took 10 years of preaching. Guys, the reason you're shooting these little bucks is because you're shooting these little bucks.
It's a hard concept to pick up on for some people.
Yeah, for some people it is. Well, Jim, I only have, Saturday and Sunday. I've got, I said, I don't want to sound like I'm telling you what to do on your own property, but I said, if you really, really, really want to make things more exciting when you get on a stand, shoot a big doe. Just do not shoot a forkhorn because you want to tell your buddy you killed a buck this year. We've got a good mix of good people that we're all on the same page.
What's your top end buck scoring that you guys have killed on that cooperative?
The best buck that was ever shot here was not on ours. It was on the adjoining property behind us. It was 174.
That's a big
deer. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
The top on my property, I didn't even kill it. A son of a guest killed it when we started allowing rifle hunting, and that was he scored 157.
That's great.
Yeah,
right there.
It sure
But
is.
for us, you just have to, everything's relative. For us, that's really, for Virginia Blue Ridge Mountain deer, that's a dandy.
Yeah.
That's a dandy for Clay County,
Yeah.
Mississippi too. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So, Mr. Jim, I almost forgot, but you've got a trivia question for us, I think.
All right.
Before we let you ask, we do this little trivia thing. We normally ask the guest one, but Mr. Jim said he thought he might could stump us. And so we're always up to a challenge. But Richie, who is our trivia question brought to you by? Who we're playing for, and what's the prize?
Today's trivia is brought to us by Sheffield Financial, because your finances are not trivial.
They are not trivial.
Look at Richie.
Good job, Richie.
Yeah.
We're
I
trying.
recognize that tune.
Yeah, I do too.
We're there might have been a template. So we're playing for Taken 6. A fellow podcast listener says, I love the podcast and really love the episode on dogs and the 10 things to do with your dog. It hit close to home today after holding the paw of my Australian Shepherd of 12 years when we said goodbye. I appreciate all the knowledge you share and striving for the conservation and God in the outdoors.
Wow. That is excellent.
Well, good. Well, maybe we can win a prize for this guy. What's the prize, Richie?
We got here from Allen Company. We got some meat bags and a Gambrel. Yeah.
A Gramble.
One of those too.
Grambling State University.
That like a growler?
Yeah, very similar.
So some meat bags to haul your meat out of the back country.
There
with.
you go.
That's perfect.
Yeah. All right, Jim, we're ready.
It's an easy one. The name of the bow hunter shot the world record typical, but never registered it.
Oh, my goodness. And this was the anniversary of this just happened.
Yes.
And but
I think I know
down there
this.
too now.
Yeah.
But I know it.
You know it.
Yeah.
I think I know it.
Was it a controversial?
Very controversial.
Was it the guy from like Michigan?
It was.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
I remember the day this happened.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, go ahead, Bob.
Mitch Rompala.
Rompala.
Yeah.
Good job.
That's it.
I think the anniversary of that just happened.
Yeah, I remember when I think we were still using fax machines or something when this thing came out because the story hit and we were all buzzing and talking about it, but never really figured out what happened.
It's an odd story. I would love to learn the whole thing. I wish we could get him to come on one day. But
I remember the picture still.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Super wide deer.
Yeah, it was.
Jim, what do you remember about that story?
I think this all kind of fell into the same time when a lot of people that maybe either had an idea that this might not be legal, or they knew the guy and didn't like him because he was a successful bow hunter and they were, jealous of it. There was a lot of that going on, but I think it got to the point he just said, well, why do I need to put up with this? And
look, I love the history of whitetails. I have for a long time. So
You
I
like big
follow
deer, too,
I follow a page called Mitch Rompala something.
Fans,
And there's been so many stories that have come out about that deer that nobody knows, doesn't seem to know the truth.
That's right. There were
So is it
allegations
not-
that antlers were altered and all kind of other stuff.
Yeah.
that was one of them.
But I also heard that this guy, that Mitch, was an unbelievable detailed bow hunter,
no
and
doubt
had
about
killed
it.
a lot of big bucks before. And
Correct.
so it wasn't a big surprise. It's just maybe the way the deer's ears laid, the antlers looked a little odd. It just caused some doubts. But it seems like he just got tired of all the attention and just walked away.
Yeah, sure did.
That's a good question. though.
Yeah, great question. That's a blast from the past right there.
Nobody has stumped us yet.
Well, I knew it wasn't going to stump you guys.
Oh, well, don't worry. They can stump us. It's not that hard, Bobby. Don't get off your high horse there.
Yeah, so the guy wins the prize. So
Yeah, he
that's
does.
awesome.
All right.
Well, I'm sure Toxie is going to chime in here, but we just admire you so much.
No
we
doubt.
appreciate what you do. We have so much respect for you and your wife, and
Yeah, and appreciate what you taught us, too. I'm just going to go and be straight about that. So.
yeah, we need to have you back on and talk about meat.
Yeah, we do. He is the man that
Thank you, guys.
that introduced me to the whitetail aging process that I use to this day.
And I do too.
Yes,
And
you
matter
do.
of fact, we've got a pot of venison chili going now.
Well, I got 6 hanging in the cooler, Jim, and I got just thinking about
right.
it.
Yeah. I talked to a chef buddy the other day, Chef Ty Timms.
Yeah.
and we were wanting to do a little experiment where we, hang the deer hide on and hang the deer hide off
Mhm.
and do a little taste test, a little blind taste test comparison.
I can tell you what's going to taste good.
Everybody thinks we're crazy for aging deer with the hide on. And
It's the only way to go.
Hey, I grew up in the meat science world. Brian Food, Sarah Lee. I was all in the middle of that. I'm just telling you. There are variables, like where'd you hit them and all that, and how'd you, what was the temperature, how long did, it's bacteria, all of it is. But hide on all day long.
Mm-hmm. What is it, Jim? 38 degrees, 38 days? Isn't that what you told me?
36 degrees, 28 days.
Oh, I had it backwards. I confused stuff up.
You better
I'll
write
never
that
forget
down.
it.
I know I'm going 28.
Yeah, life begins at 40. I heard that from Toxie.
Yeah.
You got to keep it under 40.
That's my saying.
Yeah, but and I grew up, hunting and eating deer. But what Jim and Joe Champion taught me those days at Portland Landing about venison really has changed the game for us. So
That's good. Toxie, I'll give you the last word with Mr. Jim.
I'll go back a little bit. One of the things I give everybody in my sermon at the company is like, it's so fulfilling to know that you made a difference in something you love in your life, in your professional career. And he literally is the pioneer for what we all do today. For that, I will be always eternally thankful, and for setting the precedent for being a great person.
I thank y'all too, and I thank you for the years I got to spend with y'all to build on the relationships we already had, which we built as competitors.
that's right.
If you just think about that.
That's
for a
right.
minute. Shay and I would
I
talk
mean-
about it. She said, they're our competitors and we love them. How'd that happen? And
It's a great lesson for everybody to learn, is just don't take yourself so seriously.
what's Tim McGraw's song? Be humble and kind.
Indian Outlaws, what I thought he was going to say.
And get in a tree stand every time you get a chance.
Amen.
All right, Mr. Jim. Well, we sure appreciated you being there and talking to us, and we look forward to doing this again.
Same here, guys. I wish you the very merriest of Christmas, and Sherry and I send you all our love.
That's
Thanks,
perfect.
Mr. Jim.
Guys, we always usually at the beginning we got distracted. We do Blood on the Biologic, and it's usually about some young people and they're killing their first deer or something. But it's brought to you by LS Tractors. I think everybody's got a few here. Dudley, I'll let you start.
Yeah. So the other day I was dropping little Dud's doe off at the meat place to get done. I do a lot of deer myself, but I like to drop one off every year and get all the sausage and stuff done. And saw my buddy Chris Herring and met his daughter Avery, and she had just killed a really good buck. there's a photo that'll pop up here soon. But and she was also a really nice person. So I enjoyed talking to her and seeing her buck. So congrats, Avery.
Yeah, that was a great deer.
Mm-hmm.
Lanny, what you got?
Yeah, we got one of our buddies, Deer Meat for Dinner's in town right now. He's got a special guest with him, a guy named Dayton Weber. And he got on the board this morning out at the Carnathan track. So congratulations to Dayton. He's an amazing person, professional cornhole player. I would add. So he's on the board. So way to go, Dayton.
I got to meet him yesterday.
Yeah,
He's
amazing.
He really is. Very inspiring.
Yeah. I'm not going to tell you more about Dayton. If you get a chance, just look online for Dayton Weber and check this guy's story out. He's an amazing guy. Number 2, I've got 3 today. My buddy, my nephew, Cash Watson. He's on the board with a 120-pound doe.
All right, Cash.
Yeah, Cash in the house. And lastly, we can't forget the wives of the crew. Anna Rayleigh, Jess's wife, is on the board. So congratulations to Anna. We appreciate you putting up with Jess and harvesting.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work. Yeah, putting up with Jess. The deer hunt's kind of good.
Yeah, that is awesome. Congrats
Good
to
job,
her.
Anna.
Good job, Anna.
And there's a huge deer that was taken in North Mississippi a couple weeks ago. Caroline Winters.
Yeah, she sat right here.
Yeah, she sat in the
giant. That is hard for me to believe that deer.
She
came
sat
from
in the
North Mississippi.
studio a few months ago while her mom, Jessica Crawford, was talking to us all about like Native American artifacts and things like that. It was a fascinating podcast. Well, Caroline is a student at Mississippi State in wildlife, and she was doing some quail stuff with Mark McConnell. But look at this buck. She won a contest. They thought they scored it at like low 180s, and it was scored at 191.
That is a giant whitetail. Yeah. And y'all are sure this deer came from North Mississippi?
Suddenly,
it was killed in the North Delta.
Okay.
I'm not going to get any more specific than that.
That makes me feel better.
It's incredible. And wow, congrats to her. And then I've got one, my nephew from over near Montgomery. Look at this picture, Lanny.
Now that is awesome right there.
Hayes Spigner. That's what his first deer is, 8-point. He was so excited.
Now that's a smile right there.
Look at him, got on that OG Mossy Oak logo shirt. That is awesome right there.
And he's got an older brother named Hudson. Hudson, they were sitting together, and so they've got to experience that together. So that's just really good. So I love Blood on the Biologic, especially when we talk about youngsters killing some deer.
And send your photos to us. Hashtag them Blood on the Biologic, and we'll be looking for them.
All right, guys. Well, this was kind of run long. I think we probably ought to wrap it on up. And Richie, anything else we need to do?
Don't believe there, Mr. Cole.
Okay, that's good. All right. Well, why don't you say goodbye, Dudley?
Goodbye, Dudley.
Get us out of here, Richie.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Gamekeeper Podcast, and be sure to tune in again. Subscribe to Gamekeeper Farming for Wildlife magazine, and don't miss the Mossy Oak Properties Fistful of Dirt podcast with my good buddy, Ronnie Cuz Strickland.